The Orc fleet drifted in the silence of space, their colossal ships blocking out swathes of stars as they inched toward Earth. To Commander Vex, humanity's home was just another primitive rock, ripe for plunder. The Orc had conquered world after world, effortlessly subjugating alien civilizations with their advanced war machines, and Earth was to be no different. As the Orc scout team entered the atmosphere, the calm landscape below looked almost serene. Lush greenery, rolling waters, and sprawling cities dotted the ground, none of which seemed equipped to resist. Their landing went unnoticed by Earth's satellites, bypassed by stealth technology, eons ahead of anything humans could create. Once they touched down, the scouts expected to find defenseless creatures and settlements, perhaps primitive weapons, but nothing that could deter them. They split into small groups, ready to survey and assess the humans' weaknesses. But as the Orc soldiers stepped forward, an unexpected resistance awaited them. Camouflaged human soldiers, lying in wait, sprang out from the shadows, wielding firearms that, while primitive by Orc standards, were effective enough to halt their advance. Bullets flew, grenades exploded, and the sounds of battle filled the once quiet landscape. Humans, many of whom were outnumbered, fought with an unrelenting vigor that the Orc scouts had never seen before. One of the scouts relayed a frantic report back to the fleet before losing connection, his unit overwhelmed by the unexpected human ambush. Confused and frustrated, the remaining scouts regrouped. They prepared to launch a second wave, yet every attempt was met with fierce opposition. The humans had improvised traps, blocking routes, and setting explosives in the most unlikely places. Roads that should have been open were barricaded, and human resistance fighters seemed to appear from nowhere, striking fast and retreating with an efficiency that belied their primitive technology. On board the Orc command ship, Commander Vex listened to the reports in disbelief. The humans were supposed to be weak, another inferior species to crush. And yet, his scouts were falling, and only fragments of messages returned to him. His soldiers' bewilderment echoed his own as a new reality set in. These humans would not surrender without a fight. Furious over the losses suffered by his scout team, Commander Vex launched a full battalion to the planet's surface. Earth would soon be overwhelmed by sheer numbers, and he was certain that this would extinguish the humans' resistance. Vex's fleet deployed a sea of Orc soldiers, each one outfitted with plasma weapons, capable of obliterating any material known to the galaxy. Clad in armor made from Orc's toughest alloys, they descended on Earth's capital cities, with the intention of breaking humanity's spirit in a single sweep. The battalion advanced on the first target, a major urban center, one with dense infrastructure and millions of inhabitants. They expected terror and panic. Instead, they found civilians organized into clusters, defending their homes and neighborhoods. Human soldiers worked alongside civilians, creating defensive barricades and setting strategic traps. As the Orc battalion pressed forward, they encountered ambushes in alleys, sabotage on bridges, and cleverly placed roadblocks that funneled them into bottlenecks where they became easy targets. Desperation drove the humans forward, and it was a desperation Vex did not understand. The Orc watched as humans shielded each other, as strangers helped wounded soldiers, and as they protected their city with a loyalty that puzzled the aliens. Even as Orc soldiers poured in, humanity's resistance only intensified. Vex began to see that his soldiers were not fighting against individuals, but against a force more complex and resilient than any he'd encountered. Realizing brute force alone wasn't working, Vex ordered a strategic pullback, hoping to regroup and analyze this baffling species. However, the retreat became a logistical nightmare. Human forces adapted quickly, anticipating the Orc's every move. Reports flooded in. The humans had tapped into Orc frequencies, relaying information to each other. From the inside, humanity hacked and dismantled Orc machinery, repurposing Orc weaponry to attack the very soldiers who had brought it. Back aboard his ship, Vex seethed. The Orc were losing, not because they lacked strength or technology, but because the humans seemed willing to sacrifice everything to protect what was theirs. Vex paced, furious and bewildered, trying to understand what motivated this seemingly inferior species. Earth was proving to be a quagmire, and his worst fear was creeping into view. Perhaps these humans were not as weak as they had once appeared. Weeks passed, and Commander Vex found himself increasingly on edge. Humanity's resistance continued to defy all expectations, and his attempts to crush their spirit only seemed to strengthen it. The Orc had faced well-organized defenses before, but never like this. Humans fought with not just skill and strategy, but with an unyielding drive that the Orc could neither predict nor comprehend. It was as if, with each defeat, the humans became more emboldened, more relentless. Desperate to end the conflict, Vex ordered an assault on the largest human military base, convinced that eliminating their central command would cripple their forces. He deployed a massive strike team, equipped with the Orcs' most advanced weaponry and impenetrable armor. As his fleet moved toward the human base, Vex watched from the command ship, assured that this final assault would break humanity's spirit. But the humans had anticipated this attack. Using a network of hacked Orc communications, human forces relayed every movement of the Orc troops, coordinating a defense across multiple locations with startling precision. From hidden bunkers, they unleashed a devastating counteroffensive, repurposing Orc plasma weapons against the very soldiers who brought them to Earth. The Orc troops were hit from every angle as humans emerged from fortified positions, armed with a combination of salvaged Orc tech and their own weaponry. Human hackers, stationed miles away, continued to disrupt the Orc systems. Communications faltered, ships' navigation became erratic, and weaponry turned inactive at the worst possible moments. The Orc battalion found themselves in a digital war zone where every system they relied upon had been turned against them. But humanity's true weapon was not in technology alone, it was in their unwavering spirit. Soldiers and civilians alike fought side by side, each driven by a sense of duty and unity that went beyond simple survival. On the ground, the Orcs saw how humans, even wounded, supported each other, rallying to protect those unable to fight. This alliance between soldiers and civilians was something Vex had never encountered, something his tactical databases could not process. Watching from his command center, Vex began to understand. This species fought not only with strength, but with something the Orc had never learned to counter: the will to protect each other at any cost. He was forced to reckon with an uncomfortable reality. Humans were drawing their strength from bonds and emotions that the Orc had deemed weaknesses. Humiliated and furious, Commander Vex ordered a full retreat to regroup. His forces were depleted, and his pride was in tatters. However, as they tried to withdraw, the Orc soldiers faced a relentless counterattack. Every move they made was tracked and outmaneuvered by the humans. The Orc troops, now demoralized, found themselves on the defensive, something they had not experienced in generations. For the first time, the Orc soldiers realized they were in over their heads. They were no longer the hunters but the hunted. The humans launched coordinated strikes across key Orc bases, each one more calculated and devastating than the last. These offensives were led not only by military personnel, but also by engineers, scientists, and citizens who had taken up arms to protect their world. The humans fought with an uncanny synchronization, as if they shared one mind. Vex watched in disbelief as his advanced fleet crumbled under the weight of these coordinated near-psychological attacks. The Orcs' tactics were rendered ineffective as humans seemed to adapt with startling speed. If the Orc altered their formations, humans responded almost instantly. If they tried flanking, the humans anticipated it. Every time the Orc tried to regroup, humans struck with a strategic ferocity that suggested a unified front. Vex knew this level of coordination was impossible in his own ranks. The Orc were fighters but not collaborators. Each Orc soldier followed orders but lacked the connection that humanity displayed with such ease. In one final act of desperation, Vex ordered an all-out assault, pooling every last reserve he had into a single, devastating strike on a mountain stronghold where many human leaders and strategists had taken shelter. But the humans were one step ahead. As the Orc forces advanced into the narrow mountain pass, human forces detonated a series of massive charges, collapsing rock faces on top of them. The Orc battalion was buried, their escape routes sealed. Only a handful managed to retreat. As Commander Vex received the report, a deep dread settled over him. He understood now that humans weren't winning with strength alone. They possessed a resilience and an adaptability that the Orc had sorely underestimated. Each human fought as though they were part of a single, unbreakable level of unity that no species the Orc had conquered had ever displayed. In the skies above Earth, Vex sat in stunned silence, watching the once powerful Orc forces scattered, battered, and defeated. The human forces below celebrated in their cities, having overcome an enemy many times their technological superior. Vex finally comprehended what made humans truly dangerous. They drew their strength not from brute force or advanced weaponry, but from each other. As the remnants of his fleet prepared to leave Earth's orbit, Commander Vex issued a final report back to Orc High Command. Earth may have seemed weak, but in humanity, we faced a force beyond our understanding. They do not fight because they are strong. They are strong because they fight. Commander Vex stood at the bridge of his command ship, his gaze fixed on Earth, as it shrank slowly into the blackness of space. He felt the weight of defeat, like a stone pressing down on him, a sensation he had never experienced before. To him, the battle had been a foregone conclusion. Humanity, with its comparatively primitive technology and scattered forces, should have fallen swiftly, as all other worlds had. Yet, somehow, these humans had prevailed, forcing him to retreat in disgrace. Vex turned away from the viewport to face his officers, who looked equally shaken. Casualty reports continued to flood in. Entire divisions lost, equipment abandoned, and irreplaceable resources depleted. Morale was shattered, and among his crew, once invincible and filled with pride, there was a sense of fear they had never known. For the first time, the Orc were not the strongest, and it was a bitter pill to swallow. As Vex walked toward his command center, he reviewed footage from the battlefield. His screens showed scenes of human soldiers and civilians fighting side by side, helping one another amid chaos. He watched as humans dragged the wounded from the rubble, as they patched up one another's injuries with limited supplies. As they stood firm, despite facing certain death, he could see in their eyes the same fire he had glimpsed during the early stages of the invasion, a fire that had grown only brighter with every passing day. The humans had lost much, but each loss had only strengthened their resolve. This was the crux of their strength and indomitable spirit that seemed to defy reason. He opened a communications line to Orc High Command, preparing to make the report that would likely be his last. As he waited, he struggled to find words that could accurately describe what he had witnessed. His pride as a commander warred with his duty to his people. Vex knew that his superiors would demand answers, that they would demand to know why he had failed. But how could he convey the reality of what they had faced? How could he make them understand that the human strength lay in something beyond weaponry or technology? The line finally connected. Vex took a deep breath and began his report. To Orc High Command, I report to you not only with news of our retreat, but with a warning. The humans of Earth have shown a strength that cannot be quantified by any tactical assessment or technological measure. They fight not for conquest or for power, but for each other, for a unity that is woven into the very fabric of their existence. As Vex spoke, he reflected on the battles that had unfolded over the past weeks, remembering how human forces had adapted with stunning speed. Every time the Orc introduced a new weapon, humans found a way to neutralize it. Every time they changed their formations, humans adapted, shifting tactics with a fluidity that bordered on the uncanny. It was as though they shared a collective intuition, an unbreakable bond that transcended language and strategy. Our defeat was not a matter of technological disadvantage, he continued. The humans possess an adaptability, a resilience that we could not anticipate. They defy the very principles upon which our strategies are built. I advise that Earth be classified as a world of exceptional resistance, and avoided in future campaigns. To attempt to subjugate them would be a fool's errand, waste of resources and lives. Vex could almost feel the incredulity from the officers on the other end of the line. He knew his words would be met with skepticism, perhaps even scorn. The Orc Empire thrived on conquest and domination. It was in their nature to view other species as inferior, to believe that victory was inevitable. But Vex now knew otherwise, and he was determined to make them understand. As he concluded his transmission, Vex couldn't shake the respect he had developed for humanity. Earth was not merely another conquered planet to add to the Orc's tally of victories. It was a symbol of resistance, a reminder of the power that lay in unity, and the strength that could emerge from adversity. In a galaxy filled with species that crumbled under the weight of fear, humans had stood unbreakable, proving that sometimes true strength was not in weapons or technology, but in the will to protect one another. Back on Earth, the last remnants of Orcs ships finally disappeared into the stars, leaving behind only the lingering echoes of battle and the scars of war. The human cities, once filled with fear and destruction, had now become centers of unity and resilience. People from all walks of life joined in the efforts to rebuild, working together in a newfound solidarity. Those who had once been strangers were now bound by the shared experience of survival, each person carrying the memory of their fight and the lives saved by their actions. Humanity had changed. They were no longer merely citizens of separate nations. They had become warriors, survivors, and protectors of their world. The invasion had ignited something deep within them, a shared commitment to defend Earth not just against foreign invaders, but against any threat that might come their way. In the face of overwhelming odds, they had proven that they were more than the sum of their weapons and technology. The victory left them with a solemn understanding of the universe's dangers, but also with a confidence forged in unity. Humanity would no longer be caught off guard. They would stand watch over the stars, prepared for any future threat. And though they had faced loss and hardship, they knew that their strength born of resilience and the bonds between them could face whatever lay beyond. As the Orc Empire turned its gaze away from Earth, they carried with them a memory that would forever haunt them. They would tell tales of a planet that defied the odds, of a species that refused to bow, and of a strength that could not be conquered. For Earth had taught them a lesson they would not soon forget. True power lay not in technology or military might, but in the unbreakable spirit of those who fight together for a cause greater than themselves.